Nothing like a good face-off to raise the tension before a fight, but there have also been numerous instances where face-offs were a bit too heated. We'll examine some of the most outrageous pre-fight encounters in combat sports history in this episode. Now, without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, here are 10 heated face-offs that turned physical. Number 10. Jeremy Stevens versus Drakkar Klose. UFC lightweight Jeremy Lil Heathen Stevens is a veteran knockout artist known to bring intensity. Unfortunately, the Iowa native brought a little too much energy to the UFC Vegas 24 face-offs. Prior to what would have been his co-main event bout with Drakkar Klose, Lil Heathen delivered a shove for the ages. Stevens pushed his would-be opponents so hard at their pre-fight face-off that he actually had to withdraw from the fight. Not only was the bout cancelled, but Klose's camp also reported that their fighter had to undergo multiple procedures on his neck. As for a reason for the push, according to Stevens, Klose got a little too close for comfort. Number 9. Eye and Kakhramanov versus Dustin Jacoby. Moldova's Eye on the Hulk Cutelaba has a reputation for trying to intimidate opponents during stare-downs. That said, the feisty light heavyweight got a bit carried away during his UFC ESPN 23 pre-fight encounter with Dustin Jacoby. After giving Dana White a firm handshake, the Hulk violently grabbed his opponent by the neck. Fortunately, White's security was able to step in before things got out of hand. Jacoby was so furious over the incident after a few choice words, he nearly left his shoe behind. However, when the two finally met in the cage, there would be no resolution. The competitive bout would officially go down as a split draw. Number 8. Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier. It's fair to say that Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier took part in one of the most heated rivalries in MMA history. Often, fighters exaggerate their disdain for one another to promote a fight. But in the case of these light heavyweight legends, the animosity was genuine. Given the tension between the two, it's little surprise that their face-off produced one of the most controversial scenes in UFC history. Heading into their eventually canceled bout at UFC 178, the two men met at a media event. What was expected to be a typical, albeit tense, stare-down turned into a full-on brawl. When the two met face-to-face, DC shoved his adversary, which Jones immediately responded to by throwing a big left hand. The media scrum quickly devolved into utter chaos, with the promotional backdrop being destroyed and security trying to get things under control amongst the shouting onlookers who didn't quite know what to make of it all. While the entire instance was more like something one would expect to see on a World Wrestling Entertainment show, it certainly helped generate interest in the budding feud. Number 7. Former UFC title challenger Jessica Evil Eye is a no-nonsense kind of girl who doesn't back down from a challenge. The longtime flyweight contender also doesn't back down when an opponent tries to stick a fist in her face, which is precisely what Tek Kakhaya did at the UFC 203 weigh-ins. Kakhaya barely had time to get her hand raised before Eye shoved her across the stage. As per usual, security was on hand to maintain some degree of order. The two engaged in a back-and-forth contest at UFC 203 that ended with the Brazilian picking up a razor-thin split decision victory. Number 6. Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. When either Conor McGregor or Nate Diaz is involved in a pre-fight scrum, fireworks are almost guaranteed. Of course, when you have both men squaring off, excitement is inevitable. One of their many memorable meetings occurred at the UFC 196 face-offs. Diaz held his fist firmly in front of the Irishman and was met with McGregor's own hand in the form of a slap. As fans well know, you aren't going to get away with striking a Diaz brother without repercussions. The Stockton native was restrained by UFC President Dana White, but still managed to sneak in a nice kick while being held back. Nick Diaz and Jake Shields even made a cameo during the melee and were cautioned by UFC staff members. The scuffle would be a prelude to victory that catapulted the younger Diaz sibling into superstardom. Though some pundits may have been surprised when McGregor lost the bout via second-round submission, Nate Diaz certainly wasn't. Number 5. Ronda Rousey versus Holm. Heading into the UFC 193 weigh-ins, Ronda Rousey was fired up for her bantamweight title bout with Holm at the ceremonial weigh-ins. Immediately after stepping off the scale, Rousey marched over to her opponent with a great deal of vigor. Holm, however, was not the least bit intimidated by the champion and stood her ground. The two engaged in a bit of aerial arm wrestling before being separated. Rousey then proceeded to shout at a cool, calm, and collected challenger. Luckily for Holm, she maintained her composure on fight night and pulled off one of the most shocking upsets the sport had ever seen, thanks to a beautifully timed head kick. Number 4. Amanda Nunes versus Valentina Shevchenko. At the UFC Summer Kickoff event in 2017, the two greatest female fighters of all time, Valentina Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes, met face-to-face at the center of the stage. The two initially met in 2016, with a rematch originally scheduled for UFC 213. During the face-off, Nunes uncharacteristically lost her cool and used her fist to push her opponent's face. However, the Bullet kept her composure, although the Lioness followed up with a good deal of trash talk. Though the contest would be rescheduled for UFC 215, the fighters put on a stellar performance. Nunes would end up winning a controversial split decision in a fight that has had fans clamoring for a trilogy ever since. Number 3. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Abel Trujillo. Former lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov admittedly had his fair share of struggles with the scale. One such incident took place prior to his bout at UFC 160. After missing weight and being forced to forfeit a portion of his purse, Khabib Nurmagomedov was apparently in a foul mood at the ceremonial weigh-ins. The future lightweight champ took out his frustration on his opponent, Abel Trujillo. After an intense stare down, Khabib proceeded to shove his opponent several feet away. While on his way out for good measure, Nurmagomedov raised his papaka to the delight of the crowd. While he may have come in heavy, the extra pounds didn't stifle the Eagle's performance in the least. In fact, Nurmagomedov made history during his bout with Trujillo by scoring a record-setting 21 takedowns on his way to a unanimous decision victory. Number 2. Nate Diaz versus Donald Cerrone. Nate Diaz and Donald Cerrone are two of the most popular fighters on the UFC roster. Even dating back to 2011, the two men were co-main eventing high-profile bouts. The MMA megastars would clash at UFC 141 in a fight that pitted the rural country cowboy against the bad boy from Stockton, California. A master at fight promotion, Nate Diaz didn't disappoint at the press conference leading up to the event. When the two faced off, Nate Diaz took things to the next level by knocking his hat off and followed it up with a forceful shove. A stunned cowboy decided not to press the issue with Dana White standing between the two men. As expected, the bout itself lived up to the hype. The fight of the night winner saw Nate Diaz pick up a decisive win. Number 1. Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou. UFC 226 featured a highly anticipated heavyweight matchup between two of the hardest hitters the division has ever seen, the Black Beast Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou. The two got up close and personal at the UFC 226 weigh-ins heading into their co-headlining bout. Their face-off was initially tense, but then appeared to be under control. However, after a few back-and-forth words, the Black Beast decided to send Francis Ngannou backwards with a heavy shove. Shockingly, what looked like a guaranteed barn burner on paper turned out to be one of the dullest fights in recent memory. The two men mostly avoided contact for the better part of 3 rounds, much to the dismay of UFC fans. Lewis was awarded a decision victory when it was all said and done, despite only landing a grand total of 20 strikes. Though no one would have predicted it, the pre-fight face-off turned out to be more entertaining than the bout itself. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching and we'll see you on the next one.